Hey guys, it's Bailey at The Most Important Step, and today I'm going to be talking about everything I've learned from through hiking over 7,500 miles with my dogs about how to take care of their feet. So we're going to start out with whether you should wear boots or not use boots. This is a bit of a controversial topic, so I'm going to talk about different conditions that can tire out their feet, what that looks like when their feet are having issues, and then some alternatives to using boots that you might want to try first. Conditions that are really hard on dog feet include granite, sandstone, road walking, lava rocks, and just any sort of dry, arid conditions. What I found is when backpacking in these types of conditions, which are often found in the Western United States, it just is really hard on their feet when you're walking lots of miles over a long period of time. In comparison, when we hiked the Pinhoti Trail and when we hiked in Alaska last summer, my dogs had hardly any foot problems, including Prima, who was always very prone to foot problems and had very sensitive feet. Hiking on pine needles and leaves, and especially with humidity or the squishy like bogland found in Alaska, was much easier on their feet overall because they didn't get dried out and get that cracking that happens in the Intermountain West and the Rocky Mountain regions. Along with that, I think that genetics and size does play a role. You'll see that dogs with like pink feet or really lightly pigmented feet often have more foot problems than dogs with darker pigmented feet. It can also vary from dog to dog. I know of dogs that have done like the Appalachian Trail and other long trails that have had hardly any foot problems, whereas my old German Shepherd Prima just always had all sorts of foot problems, was very sensitive to the more rugged conditions, and it just caught up with her a lot quicker. I do think that size can play a factor as well. My Terrier Skittles has had hardly any foot problems. Like, it has to be really, really rugged, off-trail type hiking in Arizona for her to usually have any foot problems. I think part of that is just less wear and tear because she's a lighter dog and her feet are smaller overall. When I'm looking for foot problems with my dogs or keeping an eye out for issues, one of the first things I'll notice is that Prima especially would get like little tiny spidery cracks along her feet. This is something that I found from reading a lot of mushing blogs, is that those dogs that are sore-footed will get that, and then they'll just seem kind of sore or look like they're walking on glass when they're extra foot sore, even though there's no visible sores on their feet. They can get visible sores as well. Sometimes this could be from rubbing, it could be from the ground being really abrasive. Skittles will get pink patches on the inside edges of her toes when it's just really hard terrain to walk on because it's really abrasive on the edges of her feet. Some products that can help with that foot soreness and help toughen them up include Musher Secret, Tough Foot, and really any sort of beeswax based balm or other foot specific tinctures. So Musher Secret is very popular, but really any beeswax based foot wax will help to moisturize the foot so it's not so dry without making it super soft like something like bag balm. So you do want to try to steer clear of things that aren't beeswax based because it can make them really, really soft really quick, which can lead to actually increased amounts of sores or other issues. You also want to be really careful not to over apply. I've had vets tell me just to do like one application at night in the tent. That way it has a chance to soak in before you go out. Of course, it depends on what you're using it for. Some people also use it for road salt, so in that case you would put it on right before you go outside. I've also used Tough Foot, which you spray on, and you want to start that about 2 weeks before you expect to have foot problems. Hunters use that with their hunting dogs. I never had real big success with it, but it is something that you can try to help them toughen up. For some dogs, however, or in some conditions, that just might not be enough. And in that case, then you will want to figure out what boot works best for your dog. The first thing I look at when I'm trying to pick a boot is finding the best fit. If you don't have a good fit, that can lead to all sorts of problems, including rubbing, chafing, and sores. The biggest issue with fit that I've experienced is fit problems from dew claws. Prima had dew claws on her front feet. What would happen is that most boots are designed to have that closure just above the dew claw or on top of the dew claw. So it'd put pressure on the dew claw, push it into the leg, and then if she's walking all day, right, all that movement is rubbing it against the leg and slowly forming a sore underneath. This is a pretty common problem that you see online with boots and dew claws, and unfortunately there's not really a one size fits all option. Some people use vet wrap to wrap it so the dew claw doesn't move so much. There are socks that you can use with the boots to help. There are even one or two models that are specific for dogs with dew claws that attach below. I never had really any success with any of those, but you know, it's something you can try if you find out that you have issues with dew claws in your dogs and boots. The other major fit issue that I experienced is with Skittles. Because she's only about 10 to 12 pounds, she's so small that most brands don't even make boots that fit her feet because they're so tiny. A lot of the small boots that we did buy were still too big. The closure would be too high up her leg, so it would slide down to the back of her pad, and then there'd be lots of fabric hanging off the end. There's only really a couple of boots that I tried that I found that worked well for her. So it's a little bit more limited, and you'll definitely need to measure your dog's foot carefully if you have a small dog. The breed and the shape of the feet can also make a difference with fit. I never really had issues from that, but if your dog has more hair-like feet, that might impact the fit of the boot versus if they have cat-like feet. Along those lines, if your dog has really short hair, right, like a Vizsla or a Dalmatian or something like that, a Rottweiler, then that might make it slicker and the boot might slip off easier. If your dog has really long hair, like an Afghan Hound or something, then, you know, that's a lot of extra hair in that area that could get tangled up from a boot closure and also collect snow if you're using the boots for use in snow. Aside from the fit itself, I'm also looking at what the boots are made for and what I'm planning on using them for. For example, mushing boots are highly recommended a lot of places online, but in my experience, if you're not using them in snow, they're less helpful because they're not as durable. They're great for snow because they're nice and lightweight. They fit really well generally for most dogs because of their sock-like shape. They're easy to put on, they usually stay on well, and that thin fabric is just enough to keep snowballs from forming in the feet. However, that fabric, because it's so thin, it takes usually like 5 miles for the first hole to start forming. For me, through hiking, usually by the end of 2 days of use, they are completely useless. It's just time to throw them in the trash. So not super helpful if you are doing a lot of hiking, you know, in summer conditions. Rubber-soled boots I have had better success with for hiking. I know they're really controversial online. A lot of people don't like them. However, I have not found any scientific evidence that shows that they can cause problems for the dog and their structure. Prima used rubber-soled boots for thousands of miles and was still happily hiking and didn't have any sort of like leg arthritis or anything caused by the boots at 11 years old. So take that as you will. The nice thing about the rubber-soled boots is they last a lot longer. We use the Arcadia boots specifically for like over 500 miles on the Western Wanderer route, and they kept working just fine. I've heard some people say too to watch out for traction using boots. You know, Prima and Skittles have rock hopped and scrambled barefoot, with mushing boots on, with hard-soled boots on, and I never felt like the boots really have ever made a difference or reduced their traction enough to make a huge noticeable difference. So I have had a chance to review quite a few boots, both on my own, trying to find the best boot for Prima, as well as doing freelance gear reviews. So I'm planning on making a video at some point, kind of going over my favorite boots. When I do, I'll make sure to post a link, and then I will also post a link to the articles that I've written, kind of comparing my thoughts on the different boots and their best uses down in the description below. There are a few extra considerations that I do want to point out. The first one is that even if your dog doesn't need boots, you haven't noticed any signs of them being sore, or Musher's Secret or another paw balm is working really well for you, it's still a good idea to carry a set of emergency boots for your dog. This is another place where mushing boots really shine. They're so lightweight and they're also extremely cheap, so they're easy to just add to your pack and have floating around in the bottom for an emergency situation. If your dog cuts up their foot on something, then you can just slap a boot on so that you can walk into town and then get your dog checked out. And finally, you can try all the things in the world from my experience, and sometimes it just might not be enough. Prima really did have princess feet. I tried all sorts of, things on her feet. I tried all sorts of boots, and none of it ever worked over the course of 5+ years of through hiking with her. The only thing that really did work was just taking time off. So basically we would take 0 days at least once, if not twice a week, let her feet rest up, and then continue on. She also became smart about walking in the grass in places that were a little bit less abrasive. Sometimes you just have to be a little bit creative and be flexible, which is just kind of the name of the game in general when it comes to hiking with dogs. For her, it was worth it, even dealing with sore feet all the way through our final through hike together. She just absolutely loved hiking. You could tell that overall it increased her quality of life. So I don't really think it's a problem. It's just being aware and being willing to be flexible for your dog. So that's basically the main points of what I've learned about foot care with dogs. If you still have problems or you're thinking about through hiking and have questions or backpacking, definitely let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to try my best and help. You know, this is really from my experience through hiking with my 2 dogs, although I have done quite a bit of my own research, but I can always learn too. So if there's something that you think I didn't mention, then let me know that as well. But that's it for today, and I'll see you guys next week.